Hi,
everybody.
everybody. Finally, we got into
We
the
made it.
system here. Welcome
Excellent.
to Awaken Your Relationships. I am Julie Murphy, and I wrote a book called Awaken Your Wealth. I actually have a copy of it right here. Awaken Your Wealth. And your money is the money chick. And the money doesn't show up until it's the result of everything else going on in your life. So it's from your health, your relationships, your work life, building your life from the inside out and not the outside in. So we have to rewire ourselves a little bit. And today I have the expert on relationships. Rita, tell everybody about yourself.
Well, I've been a body worker and an energy healer for about 14 years, and I found that I was always working with women who were in toxic relationships. And so I started to look at how body work and energy work and Asian medicine and shamanic medicine would help women deal with emotional trauma. And it just naturally sort of, niched down until I work with women who are in difficult relationships, many times either trying to make a soulmate relationship go to a higher level or to let some relationship drop away without any of those trauma bonds. So I help women work with their body and their nervous system and their subconscious to break all of those bonds that keep them hooked into bad relationships.
Yep. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why, so I just want to let everyone know that if you go to my website, juliemurphy.com, give me your email address. I'm going to be giving my book away for free in the next couple weeks. All you got to do is pay for your shipping. So to me, part of my life's mission is to help people get to these other places in their life. And which is why I've started this awakening series to help people actually get to this next right step in their lives. And that's why we were talking earlier, Rita and I were talking about how do we ask for what our desires are? And I know for me on a personal level, I am blessed to be dating somebody right now that is like, well, what does your heart desire? And I'm always like, I don't really know because I'm always doing for everybody else. Like it's been a journey to get to a place where I'm like, what is my heart's desire? Because Julie has always been the people pleaser and always done everything for everyone else, whether it was clients or employees or my 11 brothers and sisters, my kids, my ex-husband. Like I did it for everybody, but I didn't do it for myself.
So what did it feel like? I want to talk about that little piece that you were just talking about before you moved it. That's why I'm interrupting you. So what did it feel like when he asked you that question?
Well, I can tell you he's been asking me that question for the last couple of weeks. Like anytime we're going to do something, it's like, well, what does your heart, what's going to make your heart sing today? What's your heart desire? And I'd be like, well, whatever you think. Like the people pleaser in me was like, well, whatever you think. And then he's like, yeah, no, how about you? And so awkward, I think, was the first reaction to that, right? Like going, I don't really know. And then when I actually, so this is like a much, much deeper level of me being authentic. So I talk about this in the work that I do, that one of the biggest pieces of the process is that you have to be your authentic self and get back to being authentically you. And so if you're not listening to what your heart's desires are, you can't be authentically you. And
now, what's the benefit of being authentic? I mean, what do you get from being authentic? What's the point?
Then exactly the way you want life to turn out actually then shows up. As opposed to being in your environmental conditioning, if you will. And so I know then when I actually communicated my heart's desire, when I finally, first of all, then when I could get in touch with my heart's desire, then when I communicated it, I literally was physiologically shaking because I was always trying to minimize myself to make other people feel comfortable. Because on some level, somewhere, maybe it's because I'm one of 12 children or whatever, that I mitigated Julie's voice or Julie's desires or Julie. Now, people who are around me would never think that that's the case, but I did. That is what I did. I negotiated myself away.
So I'm going to pause you again because what happened was when you went from keeping yourself small and people pleasing is actually kind of a manipulative move. It's where we're doing something to get someone else to do what we, to be happy or to feel good, and for the person who's receiving people pleasing, after a while, they start to feel like there's a debt owed, and it gets very upsetting and a conflict that happens. So when you went from your nervous system being closed down and you made a conscious choice, even though it was frightening, it's like you revisited some things in your past. And this time, instead of turning away, you walked towards it. And the process of walking towards your authenticity flips a switch in your brain, which then takes all of that stored energy in your nervous system from those past memories that you never processed, all the chemicals from those past memories, and it releases it all at once. That's why healing can sometimes be very dramatic, like what you're experiencing.
Right.
Because if you have deep trauma that you haven't been allowed or given yourself permission to bring into your adult self, when you release it, it's almost like it's been bursting at the seams, and you finally flicked the latch on the door, and all of the chemicals from that memory and from that experience get dumped into your nervous system,
right,
all at once.
Yep.
And then your body is trying to find a new normal, a new
like
balance,
a new pathway,
one where
almost.
You walk in.
Yeah, and
so
I
you're dumping off the stress chemicals.
Yeah, I physiologically absolutely experienced that this week. Like, and I felt it in other ways over the past few years, but this week was really intense, because I was finally going, yeah, I'm going to be authentically me. And I can also say that it was about the fact that often being authentically me meant that I was rejected in the past. And then you people please, and then you stay in those cycles, right? And so
when you were rejected in a position where you probably didn't feel safe enough to say, hey, you're rejecting me here. I mean, I did that with my dad recently. He's been sick, and because he's been sick, he's always had an underlying anxiety and depression that just sort of simmered. And we always knew he was probably thinking dark thoughts, just not expressing them to us. And as he's going through the sickness, his filter's gone. So he was saying some pretty nasty stuff. He was saying some very unkind things to me, like, I don't love you, I never loved you, I don't like you, you don't love me, all that stuff that comes from pain. And it's it no longer affects me because I took the memories that were associated with all that pain, and I've over time just kept releasing it and kept releasing it, so that you can stand in what used to be drama, and it's not drama anymore because your body isn't being hijacked,
right?
Because you did things like this. I'm so proud of you.
Well, and I can tell people that once you're on the other end of it, that it's empowering, and it shifts everything. It shifts everything, not only in your personal relationships, but all other areas of your life.
Like your digestion, your immune system, autoimmune disorders, headache problems. It reverses all of that. My digestion totally fixed itself when I would do my trauma work.
No, that's so funny that you're saying that, because I experienced this week. I didn't take any digestive enzymes, no probiotics, no nothing. And everything was working just fine.
Yes, because you stored in that power center all of that tension, and it was constricting and keeping everything locked down. And you flipped the latch on the door, and now it opened up, and that tension was gone, and things could flow and digest the way that they were meant to. You were keeping it closed. Your trauma was keeping you in that digestive problem.
Yep. And then as you unpack the trauma, then it releases everything. But and I will say that you don't know what your trauma was per se.
But you don't have to know. You don't have to know.
Correct. Well, and I'm glad I don't remember all the details of, and I've shared it with everybody, that I was sexually molested by a Catholic priest who was a family friend when I was little.
After a while, you get tired of your own story. You're like, yeah, that happened, but I'm doing so many more interesting things now.
Well, and that's the piece. Like, you don't give it energy anymore, but it's like, I don't, okay, got it. That's what the thing that was the linchpin, now that the light was shined on it, and then all the healing can happen. And yeah, you don't go back to the story. You just kind of go, oh, okay, shine the light, do the work, release it from your system. And this
Yeah.
unpacking process has been like a get out of jail free card. It's like,
Yeah.
woo, and we
Yeah.
don't realize how much it impacts every relationship that we have.
Right. Because if your stomach keeps knotting up every time you even think of asking for something that you want, and it keeps you from asking for it, then you keep creating a path that's going left.
Right.
You know, you're creating a path every time you take that knot in your stomach and you say, oh, this is dangerous, I better stay away from this.
Right.
You know, assess it. Is it really dangerous? Is it really not dangerous? If it's really not dangerous and it's just your nervous system reacting, find a way to step towards it, because what your body will
Right.
release will start you on that trajectory up towards healing and growth and the life you want.
So beautiful. That's so true.
Mm-hmm.
And the freedom is incredible.
Yeah.
This is why, and this is where, I always say that we want to embody real wealth. And real wealth is really addressing where we act things out at. We act out through our money, through our health, and through our relationships.
Yes.
And it's about, I always tell people in the money world that we have to clean up our past while living in the present moment and planning for the future all at the same time. And in the money world, the past is our debt. Like, that's how we act it out. Student loan debt, credit card debt, house debt, car debt, family debt, whatever. It's debt. It's cash flow you create today in the present moment goes to pay for some past choice that you've made. And when you think about it from a relationship standpoint, no different. That, I don't really care about the story of how people created their debt, except for the fact that to understand the story enough to not repeat the patterns.
And the same way with relationships with people, that's what I do. I go, I don't want to hear your story. I just want to hear enough that we get an idea, and now let's regulate.
And I always say, on the money front, I want you to just put those payments on autopilot so you don't even think about it anymore. Like, I want us to get our strategy and just automatically, because we want to live in the present moment and create the future that we desire. And this is about, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I totally want to speak to this. So spiritually and energetically and emotionally and inside of ourselves, when we're paying attention to things which keep reminding us that we're a loser failure who never could get themselves figured out anyways, we're divided. And we keep being divided, and that takes too much energy. It's like fighting a war on two fronts. When you're authentic, you're not divided anymore, and you're able to reclaim that energy that was spent on anxiety or fear or worry or paying the debt or thinking about it every month, and you use it to feed your engine so that you start making better and better choices that bring you the life that you want.
Exactly. And that's true in the money world as well, right? And so, because eventually the past gets cleaned up, and we only have so much energy to put out in the world. So where are you going to spend it? Are you going to spend your emotional energy on the past stuff? Or are you going to spend your emotional energy on creating the relationship that you really desire in the future? Right?
Yeah. What's real wealth? What's real wealth?
Yes. It's this sustainable way of being in the world. It's a sustainable way of feeling this sense of wholeness and empowerment and happiness that, honestly, the world is starving for right now.
I remember I have a very particular memory of something that fits right with that, which is, I remember I had such an experience of openness and freedom and aliveness and connectedness and wonderment that I put a note in my brain that said, remember this, because this is worth it. These experiences of oneness and connection with other people is worth whatever we have to face to walk forward.
Mm-hmm. So true. It's so true. And if we knew how good it was going to feel on the other side, we would have done it a long time ago.
Yeah.
And
But we weren't ready, and we didn't know what to do, and we were confused. And
well, you can only it's almost as if like along the journey, forgiving yourself for not ever, actually it's really not about doing anything wrong, that you met yourself where you were at, where you were, and you had to go through those experiences to give you the tools to get you to where it is today. And I know from a
to get you
relationship,
to the truth. And the truth is you're connected and you're loved at all times. You are supported and connected and loved. It brings you to the truth.
right. And the biggest component there is self-love and self-care.
Yes, because you have no love to give if you don't, if you're tired and worn out and conflicted and, divided.
It's so interesting that you're saying that right now, because the other day, what was said to me in the process of what it is that, that I was asking for my desires, and I was realizing that other people in my life always ask for their desires, and I didn't know how to necessarily ask for those desires. And the person I was with said to me, well, I tell you that I love you, but you're kind of in a state where you can't even feel that because you actually aren't loving yourself right now. But know that I do love you. And I was like, oh, and I'm conscious enough to know that that is absolutely the truth. That you cannot feel love. Like if you are frustrated with somebody in your life because you don't feel loved by them, it's because you don't love yourself enough.
Yes, because you aren't feeling the experience of love inside of yourself. And anyone who's been on a spiritual path knows this. When you stop trying to feel love outside of yourself and you start feeling love inside of yourself instead, that's where love comes from. And then it spills over into our other relationships. Love is always a feeling and an experience that we generate within ourselves by the choices we make to take care of our body, to take care of our nervous system. And that's where love grows. And then it's supposed to naturally overflow to the people around us. It's not supposed to come from them.
Well, and the gentleman who I do Awaken Your Spirits with on Tuesday mornings, he has always said to me, he goes, Julie, you'll get to a state where you won't need somebody else to love you.
Yes.
You will, because your need is going to be satisfied internally yourself.
Yes.
You may want or desire to be in a relationship, but you won't need to be in a relationship.
Yes.
And that is a very big difference. And now that I've experienced both sides of that, that couldn't be more true.
Yes. Yes.
And our physical bodies, and this is, Rita, completely what you teach, is that our physical bodies are showing those signs where you have a need to do your self-care, and it's all about really
tells you.
Yes, it really
and
does.
If you listen close enough, if you stay regulated in a calm sort of space, you can feel all the ripples around you, and you start becoming a prognosticator that can see further into the future than other people, and you're able to sense the rumblings. And when you sense the rumblings, you're able to say, oh, would you look at that? What do I want to do about that? And so you start regulating yourself so you can see clearly what's coming. And it never gets to the point of drama, because your sight, because you are tuned in and intuitive, and you're noticing and feeling and not divided, your sight is further, which means that you make better decisions overall.
Right, because you can sense what's out there in your field.
A disturbance in the force.
I got to tell you, the more I go on this journey, the more there are so many truths to everything that we hear in Star Wars.
Yeah, I hear that.
You feel a disturbance in the force in your own auric field.
Right. Yeah, and it's hilarious. Most of my life, people have called me Yoda, either an oracle or Yoda, because I have that weird energy of just, confidence or something. But yes, I'm very tied to the Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah. Well, and everything I want to remind everybody that everything is energy. Everything is vibration. I always tell, like, my daughter, I'm like, the thoughts that are coming through your mind and the words coming out of your mouth and the feelings that you are feeling is all the vibration you're putting out into the world, so that's what's going to come back at you.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, in teaching my 9-year-old recently, I was saying to her, well, Bridge, you verbally annihilated our nanny and now your lunches aren't made for school. So now you need to do your own lunches because you're verbally putting out in the world something that now is a disservice to you.
Mhm.
And if you want to shift that, maybe you need to verbally have another conversation with her and find a new norm.
Mhm.
And it's been a little rocky road, her getting through that process, but she is. And it's really interesting on how when we're teaching this next generation how to be in healthy relationships, because so many of us who have children today and our parents are still alive, we're in a place of going, we really didn't have anyone to hold the container the way that we're holding it and shifting it to this new energetic way of being in the world.
Mhm.
And it's different. It's, you know, the men didn't have fathers who were more heart-based, they were more head-based in their response system, you know, and women coming into a place of empowerment and not apologizing for it all the time, or being the bitch, you know, when she's trying to feel empowered and come across in a non-feminine way.
And set a boundary when she's trying to just set a boundary to take care of herself, so she stops getting beaten up by someone else's emotional upset, which turns into bullying and victimization. It's a sick system that we've been brainwashed into, and it's gotten us all this far. But we really have to stop. We have to stop falling back into those patterns, and we have to start realizing that when you nourish yourself, you have the resources to create what you want in the world. And nice women like us are going to create great things that benefit everybody. So stop thinking that starving yourself will somehow save the world. The only way you'll save it is by nourishing yourself, so that you've got the power and the connections and the love and the authority and the inspiration to help other women move forward, to help the whole planet move forward in a positive way instead of a destructive way.
Well, and even if it's in your micro world, it still affects the macro world. Because remember, we're all energetically connected. We're all, you know, I always give the example of, think of it like Commonwealth Edison's energy grid, right? You fly into Chicago at night and you see the energy grid. Well, if one of those lights is dimmer because we're not nourishing ourselves, we're not doing extreme self-love and self-care, then that hurts the whole grid. Like it pulls the energy down for everybody. So even if it's in your, let's just say you're not an extrovert and you're a complete introvert, it still affects the grid. And, you know, I know the work that I'm doing is ripple affecting throughout my entire family. Even though I'm not physically verbally having conversations with them, I'm watching when I became empowered in my personal relationship, then now I've got a sister-in-law who really decided to become empowered in her work life. Like her relationship stuff is great, you know, with my brother, but she was acting her stuff in her work life. And she just shifted. She had decided earlier in this year that she couldn't do a job that didn't feed her heart and soul anymore. So she did the most self-loving and self-caring thing. She got out of those business relationships. And then she just got hired. I told her, I go, you need to just stay true to, where is your list? What are your desires? What is that list? I said, and she went on all these interviews and I said, do not accept the job unless it makes you giggle. And she's like, Jewel, a job makes you giggle? Like she would, and I go, I'm telling you, will you just, you trusted me enough to quit your job. Now I'm trust me enough to don't accept anything, because the longer you wait to not accept, if you accept something that's not 100% that makes you giggle, whether it's personal relationship or a job, you're going to then experience more of your suffering cycle. Yeah. Because you negotiated yourself away. And it's like, and I know for me in personal relationship, what a lot of it boiled down to is going, okay, I'm going to hold this boundary and he might leave and oh shit. I'd be like, ah.
Oh yeah. When I would go through those moments, God, I would Haven and THE point and pull tarot cards like every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because you are reliving the biggest trauma of your life. You know, even though you know intellectually it's not real, your body is reliving it. And you have
Yeah.
to hold strong to loving yourself so that you can release that fear off your system and stop being so divided.
So true. And I'm happy to report that my sister-in-law just like 10 days ago accepted the job that extremely makes her giggle. And I laugh because she's posting all this stuff on Facebook about, look, I'm reunited with the favorite workers I've always been with, and they opened up a position for me. And blah. Like, she's super excited, and she got exactly the pay. See, the result of all of this is that you then attract the money in your life. Like, she got the income she desired, and she got, you know, the love and everything else that she's
because
desiring.
she asked for it, because she asked for her heart's desire. I have found that, you know, many people, people naturally want to get along. We naturally want to be in harmony.
We do.
And so most things that we ask, people really don't have a problem with, because we think they might, and so we hide it all. But when we realize they probably don't, especially if you've done for them in the past, then they probably won't give you too hard of a time. But you do have to get rid of the people that their emotional drama is bigger than you want to tolerate, because they will pull you back very easily. And so you have to start taking steps to nourish, and then let the relationships which no longer fit you to fall away, even if you've been in them for 30, 40 years.
And you know what, the longer you're in them, the harder it can be to peel away. But just know that if you don't choose to pull away, the crisis will occur that pulls you away. And it's so much better to do it on your own terms than to do it on the terms that the universe decides to smack you with.
But usually we all feel like we're behind the 8 ball, and we're always scrambling and trying to catch up as if we're behind. And when you nourish yourself, you actually get ahead of the game. And that's when you're able to start making better decisions. As long as you're feeling like you're constantly under pressure and depleted and under stress, you're not going to move forward. It's only when you can start looking ahead a little bit and planning ahead for your decision making. Not what will help me survive this moment, but what will help bring me the life that I want.
Well, and I want, particularly women who are watching, we don't.
You're frozen.
Oh, I'm frozen. Oh boy.
Must be something
big that I'm about to say.
I think so.
For the women who are watching, it is time to own your greatness. The biggest disservice that women are doing with society today is we are not stepping into our own personal leadership capabilities. And that means, what I mean by that is we are not owning our divine feminine energy. We are not coming from a place of empowerment. Right. And I understand exactly how we got where we are. We can blame and point fingers of all these other reasons, but you know what? That just has to go. Like, going back to the past, like, okay, that's the story. Yes,
I tell women they have every right to be angry and hurt and frustrated and overwhelmed and aggravated. Of course, those are terrible, terrible things that happen, but it no longer serves you to hold on to it. And it no longer serves your community or your family or the people that you love. It only serves them when you are the greatest version of yourself that you can be.
Yes, I agree. And this is where, as you start to own that divine feminine energy and do it in a feminine way and not a masculine way, that is what is going to serve your relationships better. It's going to serve your communities better and serve the, humanity at large. Yeah.
Because we're part of that grid. We're part of that energy grid. And if we're either being an energy vampire and taking away from the grid selfishly to support us in our pain and trauma, or we're deciding to be an adult and nourish ourselves first so that we can give back, kind of like solar power. It's not just a one-way electricity. It's you give back more than you get. And so when you start getting, you have the ability to give back more.
Right. And it goes back to spend some quiet time and figure out what is your heart's desire today. I don't care what season of life you're in. I don't care if you've been never married, married for 10, 20, 40 years. It doesn't matter. Whatever season of life that you're in, what are your heart's desires today? And taking that time to figure that out. Like I literally a couple weeks ago took a whole day off, shut off every electronics, everything. And I just, I knew I was going to stay in my home. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to sit with myself. Not a very easy thing for an extrovert to do because I'm an extreme extrovert. And so I was like, okay, now what can I eat out of the fridge? You know, it was interesting to watch how we can distract ourselves. But I was like, okay, I'm just going to sit in meditation. That's how I started. And it was amazing how that heart opening process happens when you allow yourself the quiet time. And I think generations ago.
After your epiphany? After your epiphany, did you do that?
No, that was before.
Ha 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 ha.
Can you tell everybody why you're ha 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 ha?
Because this is the point. When you nourish yourself, you have the epiphanies, you have the releases. You can't have the release and then nourish yourself. You have to nourish yourself and then you have the release, because you're telling yourself, we're not going to live like this anymore. We're doing something entirely different. So all of these changes happened because you stood your ground to yourself and said, I'm no longer willing to live like this. What do I need to do? The first thing I need to do is honor myself by listening to myself and giving myself that space and that care. And when that happens, that's how everything else happens. We have it flipped. We have it flipped.
Yep. And
so thanks for
what I will also say,
point.
like it came in packages. I want people to understand this. It came in packages where one person on my staff said to me, you want us to cancel your client appointments? I'm like, yeah. Like, well, Jewel, Tuesdays is the day that you see the most clients. I go, I understand. I go, but I can't take the time on a day that I have custody of my kids. And it was the only day that I could see in a 2-week horizon that I could just wipe the whole day out and say, I need Julie time. And, even to the point of, I even was tested that one of the people was a brand new client. I'd only had one appointment with, and this was the second one. They even said, okay, can I just have a refund? Like the universe even tested me to like, okay, can I have a refund? I'm like, I hope you can appreciate that in this kind of time we're in, that I just need I need to reschedule. I'm happy to give you your money back. And then she didn't take her money back. We're scheduled and she stayed on, but it was the test. It was the test are you really going to choose self-care? Are you really going to choose self-love? And then the last 2 weeks of everything that's been opening up has been incredible.
Yes, that's what happens. That's what happens.
And so I would encourage everyone to take that time out day, you know, and turn off every ounce of electronics, because that's where you distract yourself. And don't drink wine, and don't, you know, eat greasy food. And, you know, I mean,
and don't do it just once. That's the thing. People think I'm going to do it just once and everything will see. I walked for an hour and a half and I don't feel better. It's because it's a practice that builds and it adds up, and you have to make it a regular routine in your life, not some Hail Mary pass to save yourself from misery. You know, you have to realize that this is a change in how you are living your life, and you have to change how you're living your life if you want to have different results.
Yeah, because if you keep plugging in the same way, you're still going to get all the same results.
And the Julie of the past would have said, no, I've got too much to do. My priorities are making sure I have enough money coming in. I got to plowed right through it. But when you
very masculine like.
Yep. Masculine energy is we create by doing.
Push.
And feminine energy is we create by going inside and becoming still and creating in the field.
And I think that's
creating
so
from the
true for so
vibrational
many women
state.
out there. And you know, men also need a balance in there because everyone has masculine and
Mm-hmm.
feminine energy, men and women.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's about that all of us need to own more of our feminine energy to allow and to receive and to hold
Mm-hmm.
space.
Mm-hmm.
And
To be love.
yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we don't start to do those things, you're going to continue to keep getting what it is. Like I always say, like, well, if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten. And even if you're in that's why divorces, when you get divorced once, you're likely to get divorced twice and 3 times if you're not plugging into the world differently. So it's like
cancer, like all sorts of illnesses that we struggle
strokes,
with.
like it's predictable. My dad's on a path to have more strokes because he hasn't really changed the way he's plugging into the world. Right?
Yeah.
And so it just reoccurs. Like we don't understand the depth of how we actually create our lives. Like we are the creators of our lives. And if we really understood that and we really internalized that of going, okay, I'm going to do a pivotal shift and go, okay, I need it. And I always tell people, it's not all or nothing. Allow yourself the bridge. You know, like I had one woman who I was working with that she hates Donald Trump so much that it was acting out in the fact that she was hating paying her IRS taxes. I'm like, well, you cleaned up all your credit card debt, but now you have all this IRS debt because it's your hatred towards the current administration. And now you owe all these back payroll taxes and you just kind of screwed yourself. So there is a healing that needs to happen internally with her in terms of an acceptance of this is the administration of the country you live in. Because by denying that and pushing that away, you don't have to like it. You can disagree with it, but it was acting out in her money. And now she owes like $100,000 to the IRS. That's creating more suffering for her. And this is where this suffering, we create these patterns, we create these things. And, you know, it's about opening it back up so that we don't continue to suffer. And we do it in so many of our relationships. And whether it's our relationships with us personally or our relationships at work or with our money, it's all intertwined. It's all interrelated. Rita, can you hear us? I think we might have lost Rita here. Oh, there you are.
Here I am. You finally had space to say things without me interrupting.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I wasn't going to say anything at all. No, I loved it. I was like, clearly the universe says, hey, Rita, you've been interrupting too much. Let Julie actually talk.
Well, and so we just have to, my whole point is we just have to realize that when we don't get to a place of acceptance, that's the second step in the process I walk every client through, that we have to accept the reality that is true, whether it's in your micro world or in the macro world, like governmental leaders. Like collective consciousness elected this, so collective consciousness is going to go through this. And
right.
And if you don't have acceptance of that, it will negatively ripple effect somewhere in your personal world. And we don't realize, you know, like the polarity and duality, that's the old energy model that is actually needing to leave our world as opposed to compound in our world.
And that's what we've been talking about, is when we're divided because we want something different from what we're doing, then the energy is scattered. But when you do what you want, you know, as long as it's respectful and, you know, not causing harm, but if you do what you want, then you reclaim that energy and you are able to create something different. But here's the thing. A lot of women don't know, they know what they should be doing, but their body doesn't agree. So their body says, you need to be scared of this. And their mind is saying, this isn't scary. What's your problem? And then we beat ourselves down with more shame and guilt and things like that. And it keeps us trapped instead of realizing that you have to do something for your body. You have to do something in the physical world for change to happen. It can't just be in your head. You can't just read more books, although that starts to build up. You actually have to do physical things which create a change.
Totally. Well, and Rita, amazing how time goes by with you, but I want people to know, how can they get a hold of you if they want some one-on-one coaching or some
that's
help?
our cue.
Yeah.
We're frozen again.
So how can people get a hold of you in terms of helping with their relationships? Well, I will tell people, if you can hear, I know Rita, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but 𝑖nspireMassage.com. You can find Rita, and she does daily lives on Facebook. That's how I found her in my world. That when I was struggling and coming out of a toxic relationship, that I was watching her Facebook lives every morning. So I would encourage you to find her on Facebook. And by all means, you can come to 𝑗ulieMurphy.com. And like I mentioned before, I will be giving away a free copy of my book, Awaken Your Wealth. And all you have to do is pay for shipping, because it's time for us all to work things out and not act it out any longer through our money, through our health, or through our relationships. I hope you guys have a great week. And if you're around Monday, we have Awaken Your Health on Monday night, Awaken Your Spirit Tuesday morning, and next Wednesday is our first Awaken Your Work Life. And see you next Thursday on Awaken Your Relationships. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye.